I remember going there as a kid as well. So at the car park is we walked across where the prison is. Steps going up here. A lot of steps going down.
Hey up YouTube! This is Clifford's Tower, one of the best loved landmarks of York. It is the largest remaining part of York Castle, once the centre of the government of the north of England. The 11th century timber tower at the top of the earth mound was burned down in 1190 after the York Jewish community, some 150 strong, was besieged there by a mob and committed mass suicide. The present 13th century stone tower was probably used as a treasury and later a prison. The Norman castle. Archaeological evidence shows that the activity in the area of the Roman times, and perhaps even earlier, but it was William the Conqueror who first established a castle here when he marched north in 1068 to suppress the rebellion against his rule. He built a series of castles, including one here where Clifford's Towers now stands. The Norman motte-and-bailey castle saw several violent incidents during its early years, including further revolts and attacks by Danish invaders. As the political situation settled down in the 1070s, however, the damage to the early years was repaired and the castle was largely an earth and timber, probably survived until relatively unaltered until most of the 12th century.
Definitely leaning. This is a bit where I don't like heights.
The Castle of York was the setting of one of the most notorious events in English history, the mass suicide and massacre in March 1190 of the York Jewish community. Tensions between Christian and Jews have been increasing throughout England during the 12th century, partly because many people were in debt to the Jewish community, Jewish money lenders, and partly because much crusading propaganda was directed not only against Muslims but also against Jews. Anti-Jews riots in several cities following the coronation of the Crusader King Richard I in 1189. And rumours untrue was put about he had ordered the massacre of the Jews. About 150 people from the Jewish community was given protective custody in the royal castle, probably the site of castle's Clifford's Tower. Somehow, though, trust between the royal officials and the Jews broke down. The officials, finding themselves shut out of the tower, summoned reinforcements to recapture it. The troops were joined by a large mob which soon ran out of control, incited by both anti-Jews, anti-Jewish preachers and local gantry, eager to escape their debts. In March 16th, eve of the Sabbath before Passover, when the Jewish realised that there would be no safe way out for them, a rabbi to urge his fellow inmates in the towers to commit suicide rather than fall into the hands of the prosecutors. Heads of households killing their own family before killing themselves, and the wooden tower itself was set afire. According to several accounts, a number of Jews did survive and came out of the tower under the amnesty, only to be murdered by the attackers. War and explosions. After a brief period when Clifford's tower passed out of royal ownership in 1643, it was occupied again by a royal garrison during the Civil War. The building was re-roofed, refloored, apparently at the bequest of Queen Henrietta Maria, created storage rooms for ammunition and a gun platform on the roof. The fore building was largely reconstructed. The city fell to the parliamentarians the following year. The tower continued to be occupied by the garrison of between 40 and 80 men, and it may also have served occasionally as a prison. The Quaker George Fox was imprisoned here for 2 nights in 1665 on his way to Scarborough Castle. Jail and monument. The 18th century was a period of changing ownership for the tower and the mound. Clifford's tower was treated as a garden folly and possible as a stable or cattle shed. Oh, we're going to get up that big hill. It marks contrast. The former bailey of the castle was redeveloped as a prison. New courthouses and jail buildings were built.
Well, £10. And it's taking 10 minutes. £1 a minute, that's not a bad thing really, is it?
The tower was accessible only with permission from the magistrate. In 1902, a radical campaign of repairs and investigation was undertaken by Mr. Basil Mott, including the partial reconstructions of the mound.
Well, that didn't take very long. Not a lot in there really. Seemed to think it'd be free last time, and you could go inside, but there was nothing inside. There's steps and what have you. You can walk around the outside. Health and safety, somebody might fall down the banking. Can't do that. Right. Okay, man. What light is that? It's time's getting on. So probably got one more chance to go to one more place, so I might go to the railway museum because that's close to where I need to be. Get the train home. So, that's it.